Shortly after the election, my partner and I started a bi-weekly gathering of older queer friends, a chance to get together in these times, to be honest about fear, to break bread together, and to strategize for what we knew was coming. It is a scary, terrifying time. And like many of you, I imagine I'm finding my own patterns, my own practices that nourish and sustain me. And often when this group meets, and it's colloquially known as the soup group because we always have too much soup there, every time that group meets, one of my friends busies her hands creating this beautiful Palestinian needlepoint. It is precise and beautiful work, and it is actually kind of mesmerizing to observe. And when this same friend is at home, she does the same thing writ large, creating gorgeous textiles on a weaving loom. Hours upon hours of slow, meticulous work, culminating in enduring beauty. It took me some time to realize she is literally creating, in some respects, the world that she wants to live in. And I recognized also how much sadness and loss and how much joy and hope is literally tied up in that needlepoint and in those woven items. It's a transformational process, taking the energy of pain and morphing it, at least in part, into something very beautiful. And we need that more than ever, perhaps. The range of the deeply hard news and realities that's unfolding before us is challenging to take in. And I know that all of us at some point, our bodies, they say enough, and we avert our eyes, even just for a little while, in between all the efforts to protect and sustain the world that we believe in, the world that we want. Because, and this is right, we need to find rest. We need to find ways to take the pain and use it for good, not just externally in the world, but also in our bodies. So as I was driving home from work this week, I heard that there was a dance competition, a Bollywood-style dance competition last night in Dorchester, and I wanted to go, I couldn't. But even the idea of it delighted me, the movement and joy, the indescribable and enduring feeling when one is deeply in their art, deeply in their passion, creating for the sake of life itself, of affirmation and of joy. And as I said, your opening hymn did just that better than I've ever heard at the beginning of a service. This is what we practice as Unitarian Universalists, as people of faith or no faith, of differing and overlapping beliefs. We take the range of longings and create something more beautiful, more powerful, more enduring than anything we imagined as possible. I was thinking this week about UUs and about General Assembly 2015. Was anyone there? Carrie, of course you were there. Thank you, though. I was there in a ballroom with hundreds of other Unitarian Universalists. Oh. Sorry, she's having a rough morning. I feel compelled to listen. So I was there in a ballroom with hundreds of other UUs when the Obergefell versus Hodges decision granting the right for all queer people to marry was handed down. Perhaps you celebrated at that same time in your own way, and we helped, as UUs, we helped make that happen. Our very own UU, Hillary Goodridge, was one of the lead plaintiffs for marriage equality here in Mass. And whether or not that decision gets overturned, and it might, we have created unimaginable joy. And we need to remember that. That feeling and those accomplishments, they are fodder and fuel for the times yet to unfold. And this isn't some theoretical idea. It's a lived truth demonstrated time and time again. It's why people literally dance in the streets when a dictator is overturned. Shout with joy, sing, It's why there are endless religious and secular rituals, from liturgical dance to church choir to May Day celebrations, times and ways in which we mark our place and say, this joy, this community matter. When we suffuse ourselves in the beauty of the moment, we create energy for more. And it's why we make small children laugh, why we make music, tell jokes, and most importantly, perhaps, it's why we live. It's why we love. We do so in such large part for these moments of joy. They live on in us, sustain us, remind us why we're here. As I get more and more into social work, I realize that a lot gets in the way of that. Our own losses, our own fears, our own feelings of not enoughness, our anger and resentments, our ache for more or something different than what exists right now, and of course the world in front of us that is changing with breakneck speed. And I'm not saying to turn away from that. I'm not saying to look away for very long, because we need your voice, we need your bodies pushing back against the wrong and defending very hard-won rights. But we all know that the agenda here is to wear us down, is to make us feel unable to fight back, to make us feel unable to hold ground long won. I offer instead that joy will keep us from ceding to authoritarianism, will keep us from ceding to white supremacy, will keep us from ceding to the greed that is not new in this country. They want us scared and anxious and overwhelmed. They want us to feel powerless and hopeless. So I ask, how do we do the opposite? Those balloons are a great start. How do we fight back, not just with actions and protests, with letters and calls, but by our very existence, by our joy and our delight, with our laughter and our love and the way we live our lives? I'll share that I thought I was ready for what was going to come for transgender folks. I had changed my passport well in advance. I had done the internal work. I thought I was ready. I knew what was coming. And then it happened. And then for a few weeks, all I could think about was how to leave the country, how bad it might get, where and with whom safety existed, how to take care of my trans beloveds, and who was actually fighting for our lives. And I'll tell you, it was not a good few weeks. In my despair loop, I lost sight of the good and began to cycle downwards. And I don't know what actually shifted for me, but something did. I began to laugh at the ridiculous antics of my cats once again, to joke with coworkers, even if it was maudlin humor. I began to gather with friends and talk about things other than the state of the world and our terror. And I know I'm not alone here. I'm telling you about me only as an example. And maybe we do this because it's the human will to survive, and maybe it's our ability to survive so much. But survival is kind of great. Last Friday night, my partner and I, it's date night, we looked at each other, we're like, what are we gonna do? We went out bowling. We never go out bowling. And let me just say, bowling is fun. Saturday, we went to the MFA. We laughed and cooked, and by the time Monday rolled around, I felt hope. I focused on ways to share love, to make change, and to support others. I watched comforting Netflix shows, and I worked out, and the working out was just because it makes my brain feel better. I watered the plants, and I called friends, and I did all the things I know that bring me joy. And now, in the moments of organizing, like you do, more of me shows up because I took time to take care for joy, that when I do work for change, I'm more focused and I'm able to believe not only in the change we've made, but the rights that we will defend and the change that we will keep working for. So this is my invitation to you today. Keep leaning into joy, into laughter, into delight, and into love, because as much as anything else, that will sustain and guide us through these times. Blessed be.